Hey, and welcome back. Happy Monday. Starting to feel like fall, y'all. I got a couple of releases from last week, and of course we had a trial term last week in Ori, so it fell apart, but we did get a couple of them tried. When I say fell apart, everything on there pled, so you can't. A common misconception is that you can try every case, and we always talk about it, we can't. But the second part of that is even when you put it up for trial, there's nothing in the world that a judge or a police or a jury or a prosecutor can do if the defendant changes his plea to guilty. See, when you say I'm not guilty, what you're saying is I want you to try me. That is, of course, the right of the defendant. If the defendant says I'm guilty, there's nothing else to try. So we ask for a much stiffer sentence when that happens because, generally speaking, we've brought in all of the witnesses. Sometimes the judge does that, sometimes they don't. But some of these cases will get 2 years old, and the person will say, I want a trial. I'm not pleading to nothing. I didn't do it. You put a jury in the box, you bring everybody up, and then they say, I want to change my plea to guilty. The judge cannot say, I'm not going to accept your plea, because you're saying whether you want a trial or not. And the defendant's saying, I don't want a trial, there's nothing to try, I did it. The only time that could come into question is on death penalties. A person could try to plead guilty, but you got to plead to two parts at that point. You've got to plead guilty and accept the death penalty. So we've had it before where a person would say, I'm guilty, I want to plead guilty, and go straight to the death penalty part. And that would be okay, but we would still have to try and put up aggravation where they would try to put up mitigation. So never say never, but for the most part, 99.9% of the time, it is up to the defendant whether he goes to trial or not. If he says, I'm guilty, there's nothing else to try, then that's what you get. I'm going to go through some of the cases from last week. We did try a few of them, but for the most part, they all pled guilty. The first one on the trial roster was felony DUI. The person in the other car did not die, but sustained serious injuries, and they received 10 years suspended to 4 years. That was first up. We were ready for trial on that case, and the person pled guilty. Jeffrey Branham was the second case up. That case was a shooting case, assault and battery high and aggravated nature. Carries up to 20 years. He pled guilty, and he received 15 years. The next case on the docket was a Everett Adors 4, and this was drug charges. He ended up pleading guilty, and he was sentenced on the trafficking of cocaine to 10 years. And he also got a 10-year on a possession with intent to distribute cocaine. So that was Ford, and he got 20 years, but he will serve them 10 years concurrently. Raphael Hooks was number 4 on the trial roster. He ended up pleading guilty to a drug charge and a failure to stop for a blue light. He received 10 years, suspended to 9 years, and then 4 years probation. So number 5 was Willie Edge, another drug charge. He got 7 years. 2 years for unlawful neglect for Jasmine Smith. 2 years suspended to 4 years probation, I'm sorry. Then we got another drug charge where Joey Hill pled guilty. He had a co-defendant also. Joey Hill pled guilty and got 8 years on cocaine charge, trafficking cocaine. Minimum is 7. His co-defendant, LaQuandre Lewis, got a probationary sentence. He pled guilty. The Howard Holt pled guilty to a larceny. That was number 9. Let's see, he got about, it was grand larceny over $2,000 but less than $10,000. He got basically a month in jail. Cedric Brown pled guilty for possession with intent to distribute crack, and he got credit for whatever time he had served in jail already. Again, that was a guilty plea. And finally, at number 11, the last case on the trial roster, all of these moved, all of these were saying, I'm not pleading to nothing. Mac Allen Davis made a believer out of us. He said, pick 12 and we will go to trial. He went to trial. He was convicted for distribution of methamphetamines, and he got 14 years. So we got a few 15-year sentences, a couple of 12-year sentences, and a 14-year sentence, all off of the trial roster. In another courtroom, we were doing guilty pleas, and we reported on a bunch of those last week as they were coming through. One that we didn't hit was one that took place on Wednesday, September the 10th. This was Xavier Knight. He's 27 years old. He's from Charleston. He pled guilty and received, let's see, this was about on July 11th of 2024. There were shots called out in the Fremont section of Longs, and one of the people had sustained injury from a shotgun wound. That person did not want to go forward with trial, but that is not uncommon. We had to bring him in under threat of arrest, and instead of going through trial with that, he pled guilty and received 12 years. 12 years. So you see sentences sort of all over the board, sometimes drugs, sometimes, and I say it all the time, but it really depends on the defendant's record, his prior record. It depends on which judge is there that week. It depends on a lot of things. The biggest thing, though, I would say was, and we've got to say, if the victims don't want to cooperate, we got to tell the judge that. So there's a lot of things that go into it. Obviously, I'm not saying that a 15-year sentence is good, a 12-year sentence is good. I'm just reporting to you what went on in court. And all of these were on the trial roster, so they were without any negotiations. This is whatever's up to the judge. Once we get on the trial roster, we don't negotiate anymore. So you can plea straight up. Obviously, you can go to trial and make a believer out of us like Mac Davis did, and ended up with 14 years. So great week of court. We are out of court this week, but we should start back the week after, and we'll if you've got any sort of questions for next week, certainly send them in the comments, and we'll try to address those. The month of October, there is no court, and that's sort of when, like if you're a barber or a prosecutor or an ambulance driver, there are certain lines of work where you have to get what we call continuing legal education. And October has pretty much been set aside for that. So all attorneys will try to go, all judges will go try to get their CLE, or continuing legal education, hours in the month of October. So that's usually a waste when it comes down to court time. Everybody is getting those mandatory trainings. Have a great week, and we'll check back in with you next Monday.